It all really started with my kids, funnily enough. They were born in the 80s, and I felt I wanted to bring them up as naturally as possible. So I started investigating things and questioning things. So I'm a bit ahead of the curve with this all asking questions stuff and being a bit resistant to being encouraged to do stuff without asking questions. I've always asked questions since I was a youngster. And so yeah, my son was recommended to have fluoride drops when he was a baby, despite being born in a town in Kent called Sittingbourne, which has a very high background fluoride because it's an industrial town. And fluoride is an industrial waste product. Now, people will split hairs and say there's different kinds of fluoride, and some dentists on YouTube are promoting fluoridated toothpaste because sodium fluoride is better than other kinds of fluoride. And I'm just thinking, okay, right, whatever. That's an opinion, and I'm not really sure that I want extra fluoride in my children. There's enough, and this was, mind you, in the 80s. There's enough background chemistry, I felt then, in the water. Now it's gone exponentially, beyond ridiculous. But we are adaptable and we are resilient, most of us, although it is notable that there are many more children with very unusual ailments these days, very much more neurodiversity, which could be an evolutionary thing. I'm beginning to think maybe all these higher beings are coming in with extra sensitivities. Lots of these new kids since the 90s, it's been known about indigo children and children who are more highly evolved beings. And all the same, we still need to help take care of them while they're small. They don't come into the world fully capable of managing being in a human body. In fact, they're pondering what the heck they're doing here sometimes. I think my granddaughter's going, why did I do this? What a mistake. But she's getting on with it and she's quite joyful, so that's very good. And so my main aim is to bring joy into people's lives and help them feel empowered with a sense of, you don't have to keep going to experts, don't have to keep coming to me or other complementary therapies or medical people. If you understand what's going on with your kids, then you're not going to panic so easily, and you have tools that you can use that are going to help get them through the minor complaints. I'm not saying I'm teaching here in 45 minutes how to tackle, meningitis, for example. We need to know the difference between a cold and a cough and a flu and the more serious. And that's partly why parents panic, because they understand that sometimes a cold can be a precursor to something more serious. So, and certain behavioral changes can be a precursor to something more serious. So what I went on to do after my kids got a little bit older, I went to study the kinesiology touch for health to help teach people, well, to get tools for me. First of all, I learned how to do the balancing and stuff that I've spoken about in a previous chat we had. And it's also, there's lots of those things on my YouTube channel and on my Vimeo channel and my Rumble channel. There's all sorts of resources for people to copy the balancing techniques that I recommend. So all those are given that people can learn and use with their kids too, as well as themselves. And then I went on to learn how to teach it to other people, because that seemed like a sensible thing to do. And then I went on, because Touch for Health is based on acupuncture, meridians, and muscle structure. They're interestingly opened an acupuncture college in my town, York. And I went, okay. And it was being opened by the guy who taught me about flower essences as well, which I thoroughly appreciate and love to bits. And I'm teaching a workshop on that here in York next month. So I'm getting back into doing that. It's just so lovely. When we were locked up, I started sending people flower essences in the post to try and help them, you know, through the situation. That was not random people, but
Yeah.
here,
Which
have
would
a
have been
flower
nice
essence, look
anyway.
at this. So yeah, so then I studied acupuncture, and I rapidly went on after that to study pediatric acupuncture. So I actually wanted to really help other people's children even more than I already was doing with seeing people in the clinic, and children were a big part of my practice and still are. And then I went on to teach for parents and carers, teach the classes live. And then I started doing some online things. I trained as a doula. Well, I trained in acupuncture as a birthing assistant with acupuncture techniques. And then I trained as a doula. And I was just thinking about this yesterday and this morning about how we all feel a bit upside down right now. And I
Yeah.
was saying to somebody last night, well, it's not surprising because when we're born, we're upside down. Usually, most people are. And it's like it's hard work being born. It's not comfortable either for the baby or the mom, but it's something that we have to go through and get to the other side where it's going to be lovely. This is how I feel now. We're birthing the new, and we're all being encouraged to look at where we are and think about what we want to happen rather than looking at what's awful and wrong, because there's plenty of things that are distressing. We need to focus on what we want, and that's my main reason for doing this work, is to help people feel more hopeful and optimistic and joyful. So I made another flower essence the other day of dandelion, which I felt like really brings, I mean, people look at it and they think, yes, resilience, yes, determination. Never, you can't stop a dandelion. You can try, and everybody keeps trying, but they just come back and back and back. And they also bring joy and sunshine and little, well, to me, they do little sunshines, little balls of sun. So yeah, so I feel that that's part of what we're trying to do here with this. So all that being said, I will quickly share my screen, and I'm going to go do a little bit of a gallop through. This is a longer session. It usually takes 2 hours, but I'm just taking out maybe what I feel like are the most relevant things for right now. And so yes, I will just close that, and I'll do a slideshow from, oh, this blooming bar. Get it down the bottom. It's always blocking the view. To start from first slide, here we are. Okay, so this is just some techniques that I've got from my acupuncture practice, and flower essences and kinesiology. So I call it acupressure. People are not really clear that acupressure is basically acupuncture without the needles, I think. People say to me, what's acupressure? And I go, well, it's acupuncture without needles. And I do work a lot on the meridians. Oh, and just a little sidebar here. Rory Duff is very well known for studying the ley lines and around this country and in Europe and elsewhere. And I saw a recent talk by him, a chat with someone. It might have been the lovely Pam Gregory, or it might have been Heather Ensworth, my two favorite astrologers. But in any case, he's talking about the ley lines getting wider currently. So this is another really interesting development. And I've got a little fermenting idea in my brain that if the Earth's meridians are getting wider, because that's what they are, and I know other people can confirm this, speaking to somebody else again last night who was in Manchester at the monastery that's being turned into a wonderful community facility, including, I think, a PHA hub. They have discovered with dowsing that the ley line that goes right through that monastery is wider, and it got wider in the last very short time, 3 days or something. It just suddenly whoosh. And I think it has got something to do with the astrology. I think it has got something to do with our evolution as a species. And I think also because of that, the acupuncture meridians in our bodies are possibly getting wider. Now, if that's happening when we're born, our meridians are flowing in like waterfalls, I call it. And they run, the 3 meridians that go up the arms in children are not defined into their proper channels as they are with adults until they're about 7, which is quite an important age, in lots of ways, teeth-wise and development of thinking faculties and so on. So are we all turning into children again? That's my question. If our meridians are getting wider, we are all actually being literally reborn and starting again with the meridians really wide and looking at things in a more general context rather than the narrow, defined, specific kind of focus that we've been on with Western medicine, which is brilliant for fine detail of studying. I mean, we wouldn't know all the things that we all collectively know now about the human body if we hadn't had Western medicine and scientists looking at the finest details of things. However, in doing that, we've lost a little bit of the right brain stuff, and we want to get more of the bigger picture, I feel. And that's what complementary therapies do, is they look at the bigger picture and the whole person rather than, I mean, I had somebody in here the other day who said he's got this, and this wrong from all these various accidents. And I said, well, I can see how all those link up through the meridians. But the doctors who studied him when he had the accident said, well, that's not connected to that, because they don't know. They don't know. If we have proper integrated medicine, we would have that kind of, well, I don't know about that because nobody can know everything. I can't do surgery, wouldn't want to, but I admire surgeons immensely for what they can do. But if we can prevent surgery, that's not a bad thing because it's quite traumatic and sometimes it's not really necessary until things have gotten to such a pitch that that it is required. So that's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I better keep moving, because if I stall too long on one slide, it tends to freeze and I have to go back to the beginning. So yeah, everything I'm saying here is not medical advice. It is self-care stuff that is helpful. And if people are going to use it, normally when they do a workshop with me, they sign a form that says, I fully understand that June has shared this information with me. She is not responsible for what I do with it afterwards. So, you know, I am here for answering questions and supporting people always, but what people do with this afterward, they have to, this is what we're moving into, taking full self-responsibility, standing in our sovereignty and all those fine words that people talk about. We can't then, you know, hand over our sovereignty to somebody else who isn't a medical person telling them what to do. I don't want to be telling people what to do. I'm suggesting they might want to try these very carefully and with these cautions and contraindications. Do no harm, less is more, and any help for children must be gentle, appropriate, and carefully assessed. And if you're in any doubt, consult a qualified practitioner. And there's no shortage of people who practice similar to myself around the country and around the world. So, you know, if you're in any doubt, I find it quite distressing that people are asking questions on groups online going, has anybody got a solution for this particular problem? And I'm going, can you not just look at it holistically rather than still keeping on trying to find a natural solution to a specific problem that may be connected to other things in the body? And I'm the voice that keeps going, consult a practitioner. Don't just ask people online. They might tell you something that's useful, but they don't know you. They don't know your child. They don't know your situation. You have to take the environment into consideration. You have to take sleep into consideration, what people eat, what they do, what kind of weather they like, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, temperament. You can't just say, I have a child with this problem. What do I do about it? Yeah, that's too symptom-based. And we're not treating symptoms, we're treating people. So that's partly why I'm talking about this. So don't massage on broken skin or over eczema. And be careful if the child is taking medication or having other treatments, because, you know, you can overdo it, especially with little ones. They respond so quickly to the slightest impulse given to them. Homeopathic remedies work super fast usually. You know, if you're running along meridians, you get a reaction very quickly. Although I've got adults who come in to see me who go, oh, I feel that change right now already. It's really interesting. And of course, if they're in the middle of an acute situation and it's very serious, avoid treating and make sure you get professional help. So this is a shot of part of my book that I use for teaching, my Touch for Health manual, lovely manual. And it has the conventional, traditional formulation of the 5 elements on there, which I'm not going to go into and explain right now. But the reason fire is at the top is because the emperor believed red was his color, and here I am wearing red. It's the summer color. It's the color of joy and love and good fortune, which is why you always see Chinese fortunate blessings on things in red. And we've got one on our front door of the clinic. But it's not necessarily the primary element. And one of my teachers, Nicholas Haynes, who I'd encourage people to look at on YouTube, because he says the most wonderful things. He talks about the energy waves and how we're going through these cycles. And we're currently, a lot of people now know this, we're in a wood dragon year, and so on and so forth. The reason I put this up here is because I just want to show how everything relates to everything else, basically, and how it does kind of look like an atom, don't you think? So I find it fascinating, and how the macrocosm is reflected in the microcosm. So we'll move on to children here. Now, this is my new little image of the 5 elements based on what Nicholas said. And he believes that water is the primary element. It's the one that nourishes everything else. The kidney energy comes up from the ball of the feet and connects us to the earth. And it's the energy that supports everything else. It's what is known as the jing, the kidney jing is within the water element. And that's what we receive when we're conceived from both of our parents. And if they're fit and healthy and not too old, because older parents have decreasing batteries and don't have as much energy to give to a new life. So I'm not against older pregnancies, but I'm very much pro younger ones and not necessarily teenage ones, although sometimes teenage mums make the best mums because they've still got lots of vitality and, well, usually. But everything's a bit mixed up these days, and we've got people who are struggling to conceive in their 30s and in their 20s because of interference with loads of hormone disruptors and whatnot. So I'm rambling now, but back to the 5 elements. The water is the one that actually nurtures the wood, which is the next one round, which is the tree and the spring, and everything blossoms. And then we go into the fire. The wood feeds the fire feeds the earth because the ashes from the fire go down into the earth, and the earth feeds metal, which is that white one there that doesn't look terribly white, but it is. This is the disc. I photographed these. I use these discs for balancing with people. It's very much a white disc, but you can see it didn't come out white. I took the photograph on a table, a glass top table with a light underneath it, and it came out that way. So anyway, so the metal comes out of the earth, the metal elements, that's the white one. And then of course metal gets into the water and nourishes the water and gives the water all of its nutrients in that way of minerals and metals. So we've got imbalances in children, and we can identify which element is out of balance the most by looking at what's going on with the child. So if they're having a lack of joy, like not happy, or they can be the other way, a bit manic, that's an imbalance in the fire element. The earth child tends to be very sympathetic to the point of being empathetic and really feeling other people's feelings. They can be very fond of their food and focused on what's next. That was nice. What's next? There's a children's storybook about an owl who says that. My daughter loved it. She was actually an earth element child. She was hilarious. And they can be actually not interested in food either. So the other side of the spectrum. So you know that there's something a little bit out of balance with the earth. The metal child could be quite tearful because grief is the emotion that goes with the metal element, or they can never cry. Maybe they just like, nope, not crying, stoical kind of people. Water is about fear. The emotion that goes with water is fear. And these are the children who kind of go, I'm climbing that tree, I don't care. Or they go, no, I won't go on the tree because I might fall down. Either of those extremes, a little bit of fear, healthy fear isn't bad, but if it rules your life, not great. And then being totally fearless is kind of being a bit reckless. So, we look at that. And then wood is actually angry. We talk about being splenetic with anger, but that's the spleen is in the earth element. It's not, it's more about sympathy. Wood is about anger or a lack of anger. People who never show anger, usually they're sitting on it because they're controlling it too much. And it's all emotions are valid. None of them is negative or positive. They just, if they're in the wrong place, then it can be a wrong situation. So yeah, kids can move through all the emotions in a short space of time. We've all seen it, people who have kids, they can be laughing their heads off 1 minute, shouting the next, crying the next, and then going, what's for supper? It's like that kind of thing. We have to run to keep up with them sometimes. But there tends to be a constitutional element. And this was somebody who was doodling in one of my classes when I was teaching at the Northern College of Acupuncture. And he said these exemplified for him what I was saying. He wanted a pictorial image of these children in these elements. So I thought that was quite cute. And I've forgotten his name, so I can't give him credit. Isn't it awful? I really wished I'd kept it. So it isn't really cold and flu season, although I will say this, that every time somebody says, oh, I've got a cold and it's a nuisance, I'm going, bless it. Say thank you. It's a good thing. It's your body trying to clear out stuff that it needs to get rid of. And the spring is a really good time for that. And that's also partly because we're more vulnerable, because we're taking off different layers of clothing because we think it's getting warmer, and then there's a cold wind comes along and ooh, that gets into us, and we actually off we go with trying to clear. But that again, it's a blessing. So it does bring things out if we just do things to help it clear, not try and suppress it. So this is why I'm really discouraging of Calpol and paracetamol in general. I mean, paracetamol in pregnancy can be responsible for hyperactivity in children. So people think of paracetamol as an innocuous medication. It is not. And it's in Calpol, obviously. It's paracetamol and it's a mix. No, they do a mix. They do a mix. Yeah. There's an ibuprofen one as well, anti-inflammatory. Now you try and stop fevers, and again, you're pushing stuff deeper into the body. So you need to kind of let a fever come out, let a cold come out, as long as it's under somewhat of a control, under a threshold. If it gets too high, then you can't allow that to happen. So you have to kind of look after it and nurture it. And that's why a lot of people are turning to quick remedies, because A, they don't have time to stay home with their kid being sick, and B, they're panicking that it's going to turn into something worse. So I feel like this is bringing back old-fashioned nursing skills, that people can actually help a cold move through more quickly and get its job done, and it won't linger or come back later when it hasn't, it has to mop up some more stuff. So yeah, we often say we caught a cold, but we don't catch a cold from someone else. We catch it because we catch a chill. And old wives will tell you this. You sit in a draft, you'll catch a chill. Wrap up, put a scarf on your neck, you'll catch a chill. I don't know how many people actually still say that, but in my generation, people used to say that to us. So yeah, change of the seasons. It's important to help the body adjust to the change, and especially the small ones, because the pores are wide open in the summer to sweat out any excess heat that's building up. And then the weather changes to being chillier, and then we're also vulnerable for the wind cold to get in. So that's why that happens at those two phases. However, in the UK here, we do get all the seasons in one day sometimes. So it's a bit hard to be consistent with this, but this is the general theory behind it. And so taking care not to be overdressed or underdressed, because children can't regulate their temperature very well until they get a bit older. So they don't feel the cold and they don't feel the heat. They just carry on playing. They're more interested in their playing than anything else. So I talk about foods a lot and try and encourage people to have cooler foods in the summer and warming foods in the winter. So I'm going to be showing you the food chart shortly. So people can copy that. It's not copyright. It was done by my teacher who taught me pediatric acupuncture, Julian Scott. And then my daughter adapted it for more northern kind of diets because he had jellied eels in it, and we don't do them much up here. So well, I figured it wasn't relevant. So we put in, I don't think I put in Yorkshire puddings. We should have put in Yorkshire puddings. Anyway, never mind. So yeah, moxa is something that warms the body and moves the blood and also builds up the defensive energy. Now, I don't know how many people remember the Ready Brek advert anymore, because I talk about that as if we're still in the 90s, but you do, you're nodding, that's brilliant. Because that glow that they epitomized on that advert is kind of how I picture our defensive energy. It's on the outside of the body, and it does keep things from getting in. If we're low, if we're tired, if we're stressed, then we kind of have holes in that defensive energy where the cold winds can get in as well. So that's why it's nice to have a warm meal in the winter to keep your energy up, rather than taking your energy to warm something up that's cold in your tummy. It's a deficit. It's an energy deficit. You're using more energy to warm up the food than you are getting from the food, if you see what I mean. So we need to make sure that people, young people especially, should have warmer foods and cooked foods. I'm afraid to say some people are not going to agree with this, but raw foods, again, same thing. They tend to be cold and they tend to require energy to break them down. So children's digestive systems need easily digestible stuff. So I'm going to say white bread, white flour, white pasta. The whole food brigade is going to crucify me. However, if you think about it, their insides are so soft, like their outside skin. And if you put in stuff with loads of that scratchy, hard fiber, it's not going to get digested. It's going to tend to go through or stick to the sides. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But, you know, it's actually not great. You need stuff that, even if it may not have as many nutrients in its entirety, the kids can get more out of it if it's easy to digest. I hope that's making sense. I don't want to labor that, but it is quite important. So these are a list of things to do if your child does get a cold. So people can I've got vitamin D drops in here. I actually have changed my mind just recently about the Better You vitamin D drops, which were the ones I was always recommending to people. They have a vegan one, so that would be better, but don't maybe don't get the other one, because it's made from sheep's lanolin, and the sheep they use are in Australia, and I know that generally speaking, unless you have an organic farm, the sheep in Australia are full of chemicals, because they do sheep dip, they do oral medication. You know, my daughter lived on a sheep station, so I know. from firsthand that they do. So it wouldn't be great to be putting, and I was using it for years, and I stopped using it and I got a cold. Now, whether or not my defenses had dropped because I wasn't having any vitamin D, because I was trying to find an alternative and there was a gap, but you can't keep taking something forever. I think, you know, you have to have breaks anyway. And I got a cold and I felt that that was me clearing out what had accumulated in me from the extra stuff that was in the vitamin D lozenges, and not vitamin D drops. I've just seen lozenges. Lots of those things are available online or in your local health food store. You see, I've talked too long. So something that can help strengthen your child's defensive energy is this meridian brush. Now there's a video of me doing this on my channel, so it's much easier to do that. And I'm not going to jump up now and show you. I'll just say this is the demonstration on a diagram of the meridians that you brush. You go up the central meridian, you go up the governing and over the top, and then you go down the face, down to the toes, up on the inside of the legs, up to the chest, out on the inside of the arm, and in on the outside of the arm. They're only showing on one side on these diagrams because it's too many lines, but you always do both sides. So yeah, and you can see the videos and it will be fine. You'll be able to do it, no problem. And it's just a great thing to do before they set off to school, because it helps protect them from other people's energies as well, just to get their own energy kind of centered a little bit. Hay fever coming up currently. So it's tricky to try and treat it when people are in the middle of it, but it can be done. And the idea is if you know somebody who gets regular hay fever, and lots of children are getting hay fever right now, many more than they used to do. And I think it's because of the levels of toxins that are building up in their system, and they're just so easily irritated. We shouldn't be allergic to nature. Does that make any sense? No. And I think what is causing a lot of the problems is the spraying that's being done on crops and things, and that's floating around. But also the level of stuff that's on the inside of a person. So if a person has got quite a lot of toxins in their system, then they're going to be easily irritated, because the irritating little particles from the plants and trees gets into your system, and just already there's irritation there. So it kind of adds to the fun. But there's loads of good things you can do. There's yeah, tapping is one that I recommend. That's the easiest one. But you changing the diet as well, trying to reduce the heating foods, especially sugar. You know, it's the one. And try and keep the child from getting too agitated. So not too many additives, and hot and damp foods. Well, as we look at the slide of the foods, it's definitely a factor. So yeah, there are points. I know I say this all the time. Do not just take a point and say this point is good for that. And this, you know, you need to look at the whole person. However, there are situations where this is incredibly useful for all sorts of people. So in between the thumb and the forefinger, this one is something that a lot of people know about for headaches and so on. So there's no point me pretending that people don't know about this and keeping it a secret, because it isn't a secret. It's something that people do a lot, although you have to be wary of this, because it does move the bowels quite effectively as well, because it's on the large intestine channel. So, you know, a lot of people don't know that. And so then on the feet, the same place in between the big toe and the second toe, those 2 points open the gates to let stuff out. They're called the 4 gates, and they open things to let things out. And then on the nose, either side of the nose, this is so good for clearing things that are stuck in the nose. And this one here, this is actually the third eye point, and it's very good for calming the mind as well as clearing the sinuses. And we've got huge amounts of sinusy space in our faces, and we need to make sure that those can drain properly. Now, what stops them from draining a lot is tension in the neck. So it's something that people need to be aware of all the time, never mind just in hay fever season. And especially, I mean, it's becoming a thing not to do. Very much recommended that people do not head the football when they're playing football. A lot of boys that I've seen who play football in a very serious manner had hay fever, and it was because of their necks. But they're being discouraged from heading the football now, largely. So that's kind of good. But you can still get a tense neck. Look at the way people hold their phones, and kids are doing this a lot. Texting neck is a thing. So it's really worth looking at the neck. And then of course you can buy facial rollers. There's jade ones. I didn't get those out actually. I could show you those, but anyway, you can get jade ones or rose quartz ones and stuff like that. And then the tapping points. So yeah, these are not, I have to say, they're not for use in a full-blown allergy attack. Because if someone is having a full-blown allergic reaction to something, you need an EpiPen or you need medical advice. So I'm just saying right here that you can't, this is for minor disturbances. Although, you know, it's not minor really, having a bunged up nose and runny and itchy eyes and can't breathe. That feels quite serious to a lot of people, but it's not life-threatening. Whereas an allergy to peanuts, for example, can be life-threatening. So you don't want to start doing this as somebody who goes into anaphylactic shock. It's not gonna, you'd have to tap a lot, and I don't even think I would want to try. So here we go. The diagram at the bottom of the screen is a little bit faint because I don't know why, but it says emergency allergy tapping, but not, as I said, in a anaphylactic shock kind of emergency. So the 4 points are very easy to find. There's the inside of the eyebrows. Now you would tap it with 2 fingers, or with a small person, just 1 finger. They might not like you doing this because they don't normally like their faces being messed with, but you can see. Then underneath the eyes, depends on what age they are. If you can explain it to them, that's going to help. And then underneath the collarbones, just south, as I say, of the collarbones, just below, there's a hollow there. That's the top end of the kidney meridian. This one is bladder. This one is stomach. This one is kidney. And on the side of the ribs, just lower my camera, just there. At the bottom of your bra, if you wear one, the general guideline. And you need to repeat that a few times. I had a friend come to visit me who was an acupuncturist, and she had allergies and she'd forgotten her antihistamines, and I had a cat at the time. So she started with a little bit of a reaction. And so I said, try this. And she was flabbergasted how it worked. I said, you're an acupuncturist. Why are you surprised this works? But, you know, it actually works very quickly. The cat didn't have to leave the room. I could have put her in a closet, but I didn't want to do that. So she was okay, and she managed the visiting without having to worry. So yes, they are from Health Kinesiology, and it's an energy mismatch technique that is to do with balancing people against things. And I have got a test kit here, which is one of the ones that I use quite a lot these days, since I'm beginning to realize that almost everyone has got a sensitivity to glyphosate. We've got loads of glyphosate in everything we eat, even, dare I say, some of the organic things that we eat, because it's so hard to stop it when they spray it on crops nearby, that, you know, it can drift over to the organic farms. So, you know, we have to do what we can. And I know people are, yeah, so I have to give Richard Beale credit for this, because he was the guy who developed it in 2005. So it's been around a while. So here's the diagram of the foods. So what we've got here is, you can see a traditional Christmas dinner, isn't it? Stilton cheese to finish with, maybe if you were in a house that has cheese, cooked vegetables, root vegetables, all those type of things. Oranges are in there, well, you know, we do, lots of people in this country do use oranges in the winter. Brussels sprouts, very warm, very good. Roasted meats, if you eat meat. Nut roast. She was a vegetarian. Why should you put nut roast in here? I don't know. Anyway, coffee is very warming. Ginger is very warming. Red wine is very warming. Port, another classic Christmas dinner. Oh, there's lentils. There we go. Brown lentils are warmer than red lentils, which are warmer than green lentils. So there's kind of different degrees of warmth there. Figs are quite warm. Leeks are quite warm. Tea, beef. And then you're getting into the milder ones. And these kind of things are actually available most of the year round, although peas, yeah, we get frozen peas and things like that, but peas do come at the end of the summer type of time. And brown rice, potatoes, all these carbohydrate type things. Cow's milk is mild. Broad beans, again, goat's milk is also mild. Eggs. Now, the interesting thing about eggs, the yolk is warm, the white is cool. So as a whole food, it's quite balanced in that way. So then we get over into the cooler things. Now you'll see here, it's a bit cut off at the top there. I'm sorry about that. We've got all these things that grow in the summer. Tomatoes, apples and pears, cucumbers, strawberries. Where are the strawberries? Strawberries are over here. Now, strawberries should not be appearing in the middle of winter. And we've gone so far away from seasonal foods that we get everything anytime. And it's very nice. You know, it's a treat, but they don't taste great, do they? They actually taste much better when they're coming out of the full sun in June when they're supposed to be coming. And you just pick them if you have them in your garden. They're so easy to grow. They grow themselves, spread like wildfire if you're not careful. And they're just so beautiful then. But then that's it. They're done. And we go on to having the root vegetables and the other kinds of things. We don't have so many fruits in the winter because we're having the more long-term kind of fruits. Fruits have got a very short, quickly used kind of sugar in them. But the root vegetables have got a more sustaining and sustainable kind of energy source. So that's partly why we move over to those. So yeah, so there's quite a lot of interesting things here. Oh no, that's not cows. What is this? Cow's milk is over there. I don't know.
The sheep's milk.
Hey.
Sheep.
Sheep?
Mhm.
Goats? Okay. Okay. Yeah. I need better glasses. So bananas, we get to bananas. Okay, they're quite cold in energy and quite damp creating, okay, which is why they're in this damp section here. They grow in hot, dry places, and they're really good for people who are feeling hot and dry. They're moistening, they're cooling, and they're balancing. If you have a curry, it's a great thing to have a banana to cool it down. So, you know, and yogurt also. Yogurt isn't damp creating in the same way that cow's milk and cow's cheese are, because it's already been partially broken down. The problem that cheese and milk do for people is that the protein is harder to digest for us, which is why a lot of people turn to goats or sheep's or plant-based milks, because they're a little bit easier to digest. However, plant-based milks can be a bit highly processed, and soya milk is a tricky one altogether, because most soya is now genetically modified. And also, when you get soya milk, it's partway through the process of being made into tofu, which is over here in the very cool section. That's great for cooling, but tofu is great for giving you protein in a way that it can be added to other things and warmed up. So the cooking method is very important with foods. You know, boiling creates more damp, obviously, because you're putting things into water. Roasting is the hottest and the driest one. Frying is also very hot. Actually, I forget which one's the hottest. I think frying is hotter because the temperature is higher. And then, well, with and frying things, actually, I should mention that the best oils for frying are coconut oil and organic rapeseed oil. I know rapeseed oil has not got a great press with a lot of people because of it being in North America, it's very much genetically modified. But you can, in this country, and especially in Yorkshire, you can get very nice quality organic rapeseed. And so it's because they retain their nutrients when they're at a high temperature. Olive oil is not great for cooking with, but it's good for putting on your vegetables like a dressing. If you cook your vegetables and then put some olive oil on it afterwards with a little bit of balsamic vinegar or other vinegar, that's a nice aid to digestion as well. So, you know, kids might like that. They do. So yeah, peanut butter. Oh, peanut butter is really something. Again, I was just this morning listening to a Barbara O'Neill short video, and she was talking about the potential for peanut butter to be really quite dangerous because aspergillus can grow in peanut butter, and it was responsible. A Dr. Colin Campbell wrote a book about his discovery that a group of children in the Philippines were dying of liver cancer because they got aspergillus from the peanut butter. That was the common thread. So yeah, that's not to say it's in all peanut butter, but peanut butter is very damp producing because it's made with a bean, not a nut. So it's like really hard to digest. That's what the problem is with that. Okay, so yeah, and butter, I'm a big fan of butter. See, it's not that damp producing because it's fat rather than protein. But some people are very sensitive to it, so they can get, if you're in the middle of a cold or something, this is why that's there, then maybe you want to reduce those things and then put them back in. Because I don't think people should live really restricted diets. I think people really need to eat a wide range of things. And if you start leaving things out, obviously, if you're going to have an anaphylactic shock, do not eat peanut butter ever. But you have to be careful with it from that damp point of view if you're not in that. So over here to the junk section, there are very nice organic cornflakes, I have to say at this point, and not everything in there is completely bad, but the reason all those things are in there is because they can be very heating or very cooling, and they've got lots of salt and sugar in them. Coffee is in there, and I don't know quite why. I think Julian put that in there and I never moved it. But coffee for children is not suitable. You know, let's put it that way. This is not suitable for. Yeah, there's lots of things you can do to help with digestive ailments. Diarrhea is the body's way of getting rid of things. Rotavirus is a really, what can I say? Pointless vaccine. I have been researching vaccinations since the 1980s, and I am now firmly convinced that none of them are necessary. And people can take issue with me on that one if they like, but I have resources to show people if they want to know. The one thing about the rotavirus is that they were using it in the 90s and stopped 98 to 99 when it was found to be too dangerous. There was children needing surgery, children dying, developing bowel obstructions, and it has been recently reintroduced, and it's in the regular vaccine schedule. So I would urge people to question that one. If you want to do other vaccines, that's your choice. It's always the person's choice. I've always said this. I never tell people what to do, but I give them information. And this is one of the most ridiculous, in my opinion, vaccine that they could have ever invented. So, maybe this is a hint. I have to stop. Maybe I'm just supposed to stop. I'll just get rid of that and quickly run through the rest of the rest, so we get to the end so people can see the references, because I think flower essences, I've got to talk about flower essences. because this is my favorite provider of flower essences, healing herbs, and I've got the link. And if you want to learn more about flower essences, there's a lovely general well-being massage for children. I'll just quickly show that. You massage round the hand, under the fingers, towards the thumb and around in that circle, and then on the ends of the fingers. And that, if you do that a little bit every day, on the left hand mainly, because if you start involving the other hand, you confuse it because you have to go the other way, and doing that circle the other way reduces the, yeah, you want to tonify. Because if you tonify a child, they will do their own healing. You don't need to fix things. Hyperactivity, again, there's many causes of hyperactivity. So that's another thing that you can look up, the hyperactive children's support group. They've done research for many, well, decades now in things, and they are very helpful. There's some excellent omega oils, which are really good for hyperactive kids. And Nothing Fishy is a good company, I think, at this point, until I change my mind again. They provide omega oils from algae, not from fish. So, and oh, hair dryers. Oh my gosh, yes, hair dryers. The back end of a hair dryer to degauss a child if they've been on their gadgets too long and they're getting a bit wired. You can suck out the electromagnetic energy from them. Be careful of their hair by using the back end of the hair dryer around their bodies. So that's a lovely thing to be able to do. And there's the references. Now, I have a lovely book by a guy called Kyle Klein. He's published 2 books, one for practitioners and one for parents. I am supposed to be writing one. I've been writing one for 20 years and it's still not happened. But I will get there because there's so much more to put into it now. I'd have to do another edition if I'd done it before. And a lot of environmental stuff in it as well, because I feel that that's 2 prongs of my life, worrying about the planet and worrying about the kids and trying to, sort of look after both of them and get the chemicals out of the air and water and the food. And there's healing herbs. If people want to buy moxa holders, I think you can get them from Herb Prime and Acuria. Oh, that doesn't look like a full link, but anyway. The Informed Parent, I've got to tell people about the Informed Parent. Magda Taylor has been doing this for 30 years, and she is such a wise and knowledgeable person. She's got stuff in her brain that, I couldn't fit on my bookcases. She's just full of information. And she used to publish a book and a booklet and send it out to people. Now it's mostly online, I think. So cupping, oh my gosh, yes, cupping. I've got these marvelous rubber cups for helping move stuck energy and help open up the lungs if people have congestion in the lungs. And there's another book that I send people to, which was the one written by my teacher, Julian Scott, and it's got loads of interesting information for various kinds of ailments from different sources. And there's my contact details. So there we are.